Bah, humbug. Hello, everybody. Hope you all have had a enjoyable couple of days off of work. An enjoyable Thanksgiving for those here, the Yanks here that are celebrating Thanksgiving. Hope you got your bellies full and you were able to see the family that you wanted to see and stay away from the family you didn't want to see. Thank you for being here. Today was a little bit of an unknown. Didn't know we were going to be here today or not, but we are here, and I appreciate you guys showing up. For those that are here now, PSA. I say this a lot. There's always another way. There's always another way. But, and this is a huge but, like Fat Albert, but do not deviate or use any other type of tape when you're trying to engrave glass, or as you see there, I've got another crystal heart engraving, and I'm using my 201 plus 3M crepe paper with an all natural rubber adhesive on the glass. Do not use another type of tape without verifying exactly what it's made out of and what its glue content is, because there are a lot of tapes out there that you can use, and a few people have tried to use, that will give you mixed results, and it can be extremely dangerous. As in, like, you know, if you're not in a well-ventilated area and you're doing a whole lot of it, very hazardous. Tapes that are vinyl tapes can, when you use it with the laser, it can actually start with the burning of the vinyl tapes. You can actually start creating chlorine gas, and chlorine gas is not something that you want to have in your environment. It can be a mild irritant at the least, making you itch and burning your lungs and just really hard to breathe. But in large concentrations, it's deadly. It's lethal. So when I tell you that you can engrave wherever, see, I got one here. You can engrave the glass and get really nice results using nothing more than tape. The only tape that I recommend is the 3M 201, or I think it's 201 plus. It's on my recommendations page, but it's crepe paper. It is crepe paper with all natural rubber adhesive, and it just burns, and it doesn't really even have much of a smell to it at all. But I've had people say, "Oh, it don't work," and come find out they're using the wrong tape and potentially extremely hazardous tape. So this is the one time that I'm going to say, my way or the highway. You don't deviate. Make sure you're using crepe paper tape when you're doing glass. You are echoing. I have no idea why I would be echoing. It might be on your end, Nipa. Anybody else besides Nipa showing an echo or hearing an echo? Because I'm using the same stuff as always. There you go, Nipa. Shame on you. Okay, so we got the PSA out of the way. Make sure you're not using any vinyl tapes or anything. Crepe paper, all natural rubber. All right. So we got that done. Now, today, we're going to work on some design techniques. I'm not going to have a project to share this week. It's been another short week. I thought that I wasn't going to be here today because I thought I had another funeral to attend today, but it's not today. It's Monday. So that got put off till Monday. So here we are. But I'm going to work with showing you how to use your tools in Lightburn to create your original designs, your original graphics, and be able to really customize them using them some very simple tools, using your art library. If you don't have an art library, I'm going to show you brief. I'm not going to go into detail on the art library, but I'm going to show you how to make sure that it is turned on, it's open and available in your Lightburn, how to quickly add folders and designs in the Lightburn. This will not be a in-depth study on Lightburn art libraries, but just how you need to use them. We're going to look at art libraries. We're going to look at all the Boolean, not all the Boolean tools, using Boolean tools. We're going to be looking at the intersection and the add and subtract. And a really big one here that a few of you probably may not even be aware of. And if you are, you maybe haven't used it or haven't used it efficiently, is the copy along path. We're going to use that one too. And I forget what all was on the thumbnail. Copy along path, Boolean tools, art library. But we're going to create a completely unique design in this stream. Now, you won't be able to replicate this because you're not going to have the same artwork that I'm going to have. But the idea here is to learn the techniques that will allow you to use the art library that you either do have and or you're going to start creating. And if you don't have a really in-depth art library right now, you really need to start. If you're creating artwork and designs, art libraries will save you a tremendous amount of time. If you're not using them, you need to be. If you're doing your own creations, and if you want to do your own creations, start building your libraries now. And within if you don't have any, within a matter of 6 months, you can have a really massive art library. The key to it, though, is organization, making sure that everything is organized in a way that when you do want it, you can go find it. Because it doesn't do you a bit of good if you know you've got a basic star design, but you don't know where it's at. Is it in the Christmas decorations? Is it in the flag decorations? Do you and it's not if you've got if you're not just limited on your storage space, you can have the same artwork in a couple of places. You might have a star in your Christmas decorations and in a basic star in just a star folder where you've got multiple designs of stars. But organizing and knowing where they're at, because once you get a pretty massive library, you can't find where you got it. It doesn't do you any good. So, all right, we got past all that good, and I do have a crystal on the Rolly MK2 right now. And this is the XW that I'm using. And you can see I'm only needing that little 2-inch or 3-inch corner right there in the home to do that. So it's a massive laser for such a small project. But just because you got a big tool doesn't mean you have to use it all the time. But it's there when you do need it. All right. Let's jump over to Lightburn. And in fact, what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to have to open up a new window, file. And let me show you this, just in case you guys aren't aware of this. I've got Lightburn open right now, and Lightburn's being used to run this laser and run this project. And if I switch here, I've got that set up. Well, I don't want to disturb that just in case I need to come back to this and do something else. But if you come up here to File and click New Window, not new, but New Window, it will open up a new version of Lightburn. And here it says, hey, you had something else. Would you like to load it from a previous time it was open? That's the paperweight. No, I don't want to open it. And I'm going to select a different laser. so that I don't have any conflicts with the other. So now it's set up with the MK2 original, and I've got both versions of Lightburn open. So there I've got two windows going. There's the job that's running, and now I can come back here and design. I'm not connected to the laser. It's not turned on, and it's a separate laser, so shouldn't have any conflicts within Lightburn. Now, with that out of the way, I have my art library right here, and I've got my tabs for my art library, material library, camera controls, laser controls, variable text menu, my move controls, and my console. Now, you may not have but 2 or 3 of those open or none of those open, but up here in your windows, let me go back to my art library. Up here in the window tab is your drop down for all of these different menus. So if you don't have an art library turned on, you would want to check that right there. And that's going to populate the art library. And if I turn it off, mine went away. If I turn it back on, Windows, art library, it populates it right back over there. If yours populates, or not there, I want to grab that. It's possible yours may open up like this in the middle of your screen somewhere. And if that's the case, all you got to do is grab the header of it up here near the title description and drag it over here and watch for there where it turns blue. That's telling you it's going to marry that in and put it in with all the other existing tabs you've got. And then you'll have your art library open. And here you can see where I've got all these different file folders in Lightburn set up. And I've got and each of these are different types of artwork that have been accumulated over the last couple of years. Let's see. Where is, I know which one I'll show you. You got to be careful with this one, though. You better use stuff like this for your private use only and don't sell it. Disney will get you quicker than anybody will. But I've got all of my Star Wars information, everything Star Wars related I've got in here in my Star Wars folder. Now, when you're going to set up, if you're setting up your art library for the first time, you're going to open that up and you're not going to have any of those folders over there. It will most likely be completely blank if you've never used it. So you're going to need to create a folder, and you want to put that in a place that organization is key, absolutely key. Because like I said, if you can't find it, it doesn't do you any good. And when you create this folder this time, if it's next week or 2 weeks from now before you create a second folder, you want to know where that first folder was at so you can keep them all in the same location. So if I want to come in here and I want to create a new art library, then it's going to open it up and says, create new library. Well, this is where do I want it to go? Well, I don't want it in my downloads. I want it to go in my Lightburn and in my art library. If I go back here, my desktop, there's my Lightburn folder. I open up my Lightburn folder, and then I've got a subfolder within the folder of Lightburn that's called Art Library, and there's all of my art libraries. Now I can create a new folder here, and we're going to call this one Live Test, and say save. And when I do, it's going to create that folder over here, Live Test. And then if I've created something, and we'll do it real quick, we'll hold down Shift and draw out a perfect polygon, go to our shape properties and tell it to be a 5-sided polygon, and put it in line mode. And let's grab our pencil tool, and we'll go from here to here, to here, here, and here. Delete that one. I'm going to flip that one so it's not inverted. There we go. Now I'm going to do a 0 offset. Delete the original. And now I have a perfect star. Now I want to put that in my folder. Well, right now, with it not selected, you don't have the option to import graphic. Select it, Import graphic from project. Name it. This is a basic star. Come on, you got to spell it right. Get your fingers in the right place. Basic. Come on, dum-dum. Basic star. And say okay. And then it's going to put that in that folder. And I'm going to delete this. So now when you come into Lightburn and you're ready to go to work and you're looking around, looking, where's that star at? Oh, yeah, it's in this case, it's just live test. And then you can bring this into your artwork multiple ways. You can just simply grab it and drag it over here. Or, oh, I didn't want to do that. Let's put that back in there. I deleted the wrong thing. I wanted to delete that. You can drag it like you just seen, or just double click it and it'll pop it into your artwork. And then a lot of the functions in here work like the rest of Windows features you're familiar with. If you wanted to change the name of that, you would right click and rename, and you could change it to just star and say, okay. And now, that way. And why would you want to reorganize or rename it? Is if you've started to get a folder in there and you've got 15 or 20 different things. Sometimes I don't even bother naming mine. Mine are just numbered. I'll have 20 items in there to be items numbers 1 through 20. If they're all Christmas trees, let's see here. Come up here to my Christmas trees, and that's an example. I've got 1 through 17, and all of these are different variances on Christmas trees. And I like this one. That's my little Charlie Brown Christmas tree. But if you're actually naming them and you want to put them in some type of organized, and it's going to automatically alphabetize them. And if you want to have a certain one up front, then you might rename it so it appears further up, and so you're not having to scroll. So renaming, right click, rename. So there's my tips on the art library. How to turn it on, how to create your folders, how to import your stuff, how to get them back into the Lightburn. And if you do that over time, and it won't take long at all, you will start to begin to build a massive library. So we're going to get rid of the little Charlie Brown tree and get rid of that guy. And I'm going to go into my art library. And let's see here. I got some question or a question. Let's see. Before I get too far going down the rabbit hole on different things, I seen the question. Chicago Bob. Thank you, Chicago Bob. I didn't know if anybody would catch it, but Chicago Bob caught it, and I love it. I love it. And what I'm referring to. Love the dinosaurs reference with Davy Sinclair. I love it. I didn't think anybody would get it. In fact, I was going to make that part of maybe a trivia question in a little bit. But Chicago Bob got it without even having to be brought up. So thank you. I loved that show. Loved it. All right, there's the question I seen. What if you don't have another laser but just want, okay. Then Lightburn has created the ability to set up, and I should have done this. If I go back to my laser and select, I've got right here, no machine. So if you go into devices and create manually, you can, right here, you've got a ghost. No machine. You can select that and set up the no machine. And that way it's not going to be going to any machine. And you can set up the work area to be, because right here, when I opened it up. I've got the MK2 open with that job running. And I opened up the MK2. That's the XW. And then I opened up the regular MK2. And it's got a much, much smaller workspace. Well, what if I wanted to work in 2 workspaces the same size as the XW? Well, I could set up a no machine with the XW workspace. So create a ghost machine or a no machine with whatever parameters you want it to be, and you can work and design in it, not bothering the laser while it's working. Good question. Really good question. Not Stanley, would you send us your library? I do not share my library as a whole. I do share a, and how do I say this without? I have a lot of art in my library. A lot of it is mine, my unique work. A lot of it is stuff that I have accumulated from like svgheart.com and other sources that I pay for to get that, and sharing. And there've been some folks, and I don't know if anybody's watching it right now, but there've been some folks making comments in the Roll the Automation group on Facebook and in my Hobo with Wood group about sharing artwork and sharing files and giving files away. Don't do that, especially if you bought them and paid for them. If you bought them and paid for them and you are then turn around and giving that away, well, you're robbing the person who created that to begin with. And so some of this artwork in here is not mine to give away. But the ones that I have worked with, redesigned, recreated, tweaked, and or a lot of them that I have are not Lightburn friendly in any way, shape, or form. They're an absolute nightmare of a mess. And as I clean those up and I save them, I make notes of what those are. And then my gold patrons for the last 3 or 4 months, the ones that are not copyrighted or I have to worry about any kind of issues with sharing that artwork, I share a Lightburn library art folder at the first of the month, so for the last several months. But before I share that with my gold patrons, I do make sure that they're as clean as possible. No open shapes, no overlapping designs, no. I want them as clean as possible. But those go to my gold patrons only. And while we're briefly talking about patrons, I've got the gold, silver, and bronze patron levels. Well, many months ago, maybe even a year ago, Patreon introduced a free patron tier. If you guys, if any of you are watching or signed up as a free patron now, you're seeing nothing. And you're like, well, there's nothing. I don't post anything to free Patreon. I did not want that. I did not engage that. They turned it on automatically, and I can't get rid of it as long as there are free patrons there. But there was nothing and will not be anything there for you to see. So don't bother wasting your time signing up as a free patron. You won't see anything. All right. So answered that. What black tempera? Would a wood black tempera paint work just as well on the glass as tape? Will it work just as well? In my opinion, and you know how opinions are. Oh, wrong button. In my opinion, no, it doesn't. Can you get as good a result? Yeah, with practice and with time. Because if you don't get it an even coating on there, or if it's thicker than in some areas than others, then it can give you an uneven result from your laser if you're going through too much paint or not enough paint. Whereas with the one layer, and that's why I got this big, huge roll. It's I think 11 or 12 inches wide. And you can see I rip off, small sections at a time when I need to. There we go. Because I just ripped off a little piece just to cover that. But when I need to cover a 12-inch work area, this roll will do it in one application. And no seams, no overlapping. You don't have to, with tempera paint, you have to put on a coat, let it dry. Put on another coat, let it dry. Maybe you do a third coat, let it dry. You got a lot of time and prep in that. a lot of cleanup with mixing the paint, your sprayers, or your brushes, whatever. Here, peel and stick. One layer, quick, simple, done. And it's uniform because it's just one layer. So I feel like any of and this works as well as any other method I've tried. And I've tried the zinc coatings, the paints, the tempuras, the chalkboard paint. Tried them all, and nothing works better, and nothing works as quick and as easy to prepare. I mean, this is, and I've said this many, many times. I am one of the laziest people you will ever meet, ever, or ever encounter. But I am a little bit of a perfectionist. That's why I don't share stuff or make it available until I've tested it and know that it works. So it gives a perfect result, with minimal amount of effort. So any other method to me is it's too much work because I'm too lazy. Yeah, I don't know anything about those. Sorry, DJ. I have never encountered them, never used them, I have no feedback on them. And we don't want to get down too many rabbit holes here, but I'm going to answer these questions before we get back into the designing. Not Stanley's, any good spray painting tips for balsa? On some of your thinner woods, your basswood, potentially your balsa wood, anything that's really, really soft, I would, to prevent any bleeding and anything going on, I will seal it first. I'll put a coat of lacquer on it, just a thin coat, and seal that, and then paint it. And that way you don't have as much absorption. The wood doesn't suck that paint up, and you use less paint to get a good even coat on there. But my very first laser, I was having a whole lot of problems with that one, cracking lenses. And I have wondered if it wasn't a combination of the poor design of the lasers, air assist, combined with I was doing a tremendous amount of coatings. That's when I was testing all the paint. I was testing the white spray paints, the zinc oxides, the poly sprays, and everything else. Well, all that stuff gassing off is all that gassing, and with the poor design of that air assist, is sucking up and just coating that lens, coating the laser. I mean, I've gotten to where now I do not do much pre-painting at all. I will paint afterwards in my paint of choice. If I'm going to paint, are my acrylic paint pens that I've got in the Hobo with Wood website. They're small. They call them, what do they call these? These are extra fine point. And with the engraving used as a cutoff line, it's easy to get really precise, painting. But anyway, squirrel, we got derailed. Let's get back into the designs. Yep, and Craig says the same thing there. He says, yep, seal balsa first. It works better. More betterer. That's Southern for y'all that don't know. More betterer. All right, so I'm going to use my art library to bring in a basic heart design, that something similar to what I've got on the laser now. Where did it go? There it is. Something like this. And I've got a basic heart design, and I want to, we're going to create a version of a living tree type situation where it's got some limbs and some leaves and We can put a couple places to put some names or initials, and we're going to do all that from scratch. And before I was getting ready to mark my spot, and I got another comment. I'm designing my fume extraction to suck down through the bed. Well, yep. And I'm pretty sure Clack does that too. He's got fume extraction that pulls down from around the bed, and that is slick. But we're going back to the lazy. I'm too lazy to do all that. This thing's about to drive me nuts. I'm too lazy to mess with. I'm gonna turn a little bit sideways. I'm too lazy to mess with building an enclosure, but having that suction and drawing it down, yeah, that. If you don't have a full enclosure and you aren't building an enclosure with the drawdown, another thing that I started to do when I thought maybe that was part of my problem, and I don't have it around here, just get you a small little 6-inch desk fan, even one that's a little battery operated, that you can set over beside your, especially if it's an open gantry machine, and you set it over to the side so that it's blowing air across the surface of your engraving material, so that it's blowing the fumes out and away from the laser module, and it's not getting sucked back up in there. So that's another thing you can try to do for, go to the dollar store and buy you one of the, battery operated fans, and even they got little clips on it you can clip on the side of your table. Let's see here. Mark my spot, and we're going to jump in here and start designing. All right, spot is marked, and back to Lightburn. All right, and go over to my art library, and I want to find my heart. So I'm going to come down to my heart folder, and I've got a few different hearts, and if I hover over that, it'll pop up and show me the what each of those is. And this is what I'm engraving right now. I'm putting this mandala on one of those crystal paperweights, but I got two different hearts, and I think I'm going to use this one. There's just this one's got a little bit more curvature around the bottom edges. I'm going to go with this one. It's a little better, or a little straighter. Now, if this will be the first cautionary thing that I'll tell you, if you're going out and you don't have a heart, or maybe you do have a heart. Maybe you have a heart. Maybe you're not like the Tin Man. I don't know. Maybe you have a heart. But it may not be symmetrical. And it is, for what I'm getting ready to do in the process that I'm going to show you, symmetry is pretty important. So if you start out with an asymmetrical piece, it may be, go away, Link. It may create problems down the road. So, and this is something else that I do with my art libraries. Before I share them with folks, I do try to make sure that images like this are as not just Lightburn friendly, but they're as symmetrical and as even as possible. So how do you determine if your heart is symmetrical? Well, you can do that real simple by going into your rectangle tool, draw out a rectangle that makes sure that it's higher and goes above and below your heart. Then just drag that to where it intersects right with that point. And that's another thing. You want to look, does it have a single point where it comes there, or is it a rounded radius right there? Well, if it's a rounded radius, then it might be harder to find the exact center. But with a single point, I can snap it right there, and then just come down here to the bottom and look, does it intersect with the bottom point? And it does. So that heart is perfectly symmetrical. If it wasn't, then all I would need to do is select the heart, hold my shift button, select that toolpath I just created, and use the A subtract B. If you selected the heart first, that's A, then hold shift, select the rectangle, that's B. A subtract B would give you that half of the heart. Then you say Control D to duplicate it. Then use your mirror tool up here to mirror that selection horizontally. then use your arrow buttons to move it over. Hold Shift and select the other half, and Alt Shift H will move it together horizontally and weld it together. And now you would have a perfectly symmetrical heart because you just created one half of it, duplicated it, put it together, and now it's symmetrical, and you know it's going to work great. Okay. So now that we've got a symmetrical heart, I want to make this look like some tree limbs out of the living tree of life. Or let's see here, the living tree. Where have I got? No. Trees. This is what I'm talking about. I see I've got so much and I can't spell, so I got a ST trees. There we go, trees. All right, so I've got two different trees. I got my tree of life here, and the tree of life is got a lot going on. It's full of limbs and really, really busy. I got limbs everywhere. And if I reduce that down to where it's going to be pieces like I may use in the heart, well, now they're getting really, really, really small. So I'm not so sure I would want to use that tree of life here. So I'm going to delete that. But I like this bare tree. And plus, I want to show you guys how to use the copy along path. And we're going to use that to add leaves to this tree and do it in a manner so that they're created very, very easily and rapidly, but they're also still easily edited and I'm doing this. I'm going to be doing these this process in a manner that's intentional. I'm not going to weld things to certain things right after they're created because I may need to edit those later on. So it's like, well, don't you want to add those, weld those? No, and you'll see why. And this is how this mind works. There's always another way, except for using tape when you're engraving on glass. Make sure it's crepe paper and all natural rubber and no synthetics, anything. So now I've got this tree and I've got this heart. Obviously, I don't want this whole tree. And there are a couple of ways you could do this. You could take control and shrink this whole thing down to where you've got the tree kind of coming up from the center of the heart, kind of like that there. And if you wanted to bring her up a little bit higher, say about there, that's putting it up out of the way. But I didn't go with that option because I didn't like, if I keep that below there, I didn't like all those voids that were left up here and here. So I'm like, okay, I just want some limbs coming up. So I rotate this around and I'm looking at two particular limbs. I'm going to bring that up and I'm going to bring this over here. Actually, I'm going to do something. I'm going to bring that down. And what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to design one half of this. And now just stretch that up a little bit, rotate it around. We'll try that. See what that looks like. All right, now I'm going to show you the part of the tree that's inside the heart is the only thing that I'm keeping, the limbs that you see in there. But I'm going to create one side, and I'm going to create it along with all the leaves and every part of it. Then once all that's created, then just duplicate it, mirror it, and because the heart is symmetrical, and we made sure it was symmetrical to begin with, once I do the duplication and then flip it, I can assign it to the right side of the heart, and it'll line up perfect, and it'll be symmetrical. And there are times that asymmetry looks good, if it's an intentional asymmetrical design where the heart's warped and twisted, but when it's a non-intentional asymmetry, it just doesn't look right. Not to me. All right. Now, in order to create the pieces that I want, I've got a heart, I've got one object here, and I've got one object here. So I've got two objects. But all I want is this part that's inside the heart. But I want to keep my heart as a separate entity, and I want these limbs to be a separate entity. So how do I do that? I want the difference or the intersection of these two pieces. And you've got a tool over here in the Boolean tools that is your Boolean intersection of two shapes, the intersection of A and B. And when you're doing the intersection of A and B, it doesn't matter which one of the two you grab first, because it's, as you can see, in fact, I'll make it highlighted. So there you can see you've got the grayed out area of the two outer pieces, and the only place in here where it intersects is what's left. And it doesn't matter if you grab A or B and A, it's only going to leave the intersection of the two. But what does matter, if you're wanting to keep one of the original pieces completely intact, you have to duplicate it. Because when you use the intersection tool, the two original pieces are going to be deleted. They're going to be gone, and you're only going to be left with the intersection. And since I want to keep the heart, I've got to duplicate the heart and then select and I don't have to select it. When you do the duplication, the duplicate is automatically selected. Now all I got to do is hold shift, grab the tree, do the intersection, and I've got my limbs. So select my heart, Control D to duplicate it. It's already selected. Hold my shift, select the tree and the intersect tool, and now I've got these tree limbs. And those are grouped together because that's an individual piece, that's an individual piece. And if I put this on a toolpath and then turn it off, there you go. So you can see the intersection created closed shapes. And I don't want that little guy right there. So I turn that back on. I don't want that down there. But the intersection created that as a group. So I've got to ungroup it. Then I can select just that one and delete it. And then if there's anything else that I want to delete or change, I could do that. But I'm going to leave those as is right now. And I'm going to leave these ungrouped because now I'm going to add my leaves to these limbs. And I do not have a leaf. In fact, the laser's finished. I'm going to turn it off to turn the fan off. And actually, go ahead. I had something on top of the laser. Got to look for that first. Take that off. Turn that off. And there's the crepe paper on there. And I'll peel that off and expose this. I'll expose it at the end of the stream. I'm going to grab what I just threw in the floor because I want to show you that too. Squeeze me. Tight quarters, tight quarters. Okay. Now, sorry about that. That's what you get for not paying attention to what you're doing. All right. So good. We're seeing some ones and twos. That means folks are learning a little bit. And for anybody who's new to the stream, you're not here, when you see a 1 or a 2 or a 7, that's folks indicating that they have learned something already in the stream. And every time they learn something, the number increases. and going down there like that on my knees and come back up, I just got dizzy. The old man can't be doing that. All right. And if you have any questions, precede your questions with 3 question marks. If you have a comment that you want me to address and bring to everybody's attention, put 3 exclamation points in there before the statement, and we'll get to it. All right. Going back up to where I marked my stuff. There we go. Like this. Chris put 3 exclamation points out there. He says, I use a 120 millimeter. Yes. Computer fan works great for blowing the smoke out of the areas. It works great. I didn't have an extra computer fan, but like I said, I go to Dollar General, the Dollar Tree, at least once a month, because that's where I get me and my RCs at the dollar store. And just a cheap fan that'll blow across, battery operated, don't have to worry about any extra draws. That's what I went with. All right. Exclamation points. Do not forget to like, share, and Patreon. Go to Patreon and go gold. And thank you, Chicago Bob. Chicago Bob is one of my bigger weekly cheerleaders. Let's see here. Where is it? There it is. Show. Patreon.com /Hobo with Wood to become a regular supporter of the channel. Without my patrons, I couldn't do this every week, and I am forever grateful for the support that I get from bronze, silver, and gold. Looking for more before I move on. Questions and comments. Question: can diodes work on acrylic yet? Yes. No. Maybe. A diode will not cut a lot of the acrylics. Diodes can mark some of your acrylics. It can engrave some of the acrylics. The clear acrylic, it can't cut that. It's just going to pass right through it. You can, if you put tape over it, and you could engrave it like I did the surface of that, possibly. And if you try to use enough heat, you just melt it. But black acrylic, I cut black acrylic all day long with a blue diode laser. That's why I said yes, no, and maybe. But acrylics are not, and they stink. Oh my Lord, they stink. So be careful with acrylics, and you want to, because if I'm not mistaken, even there are 2 different types of acrylics, and some of those can be potentially dangerous, I think, and or they don't cut as well. I don't like messing with acrylic if I can help it. I looked at the shop supplies on your site, but did not see the natural rubber tape. What is it exactly? Thanks. I will put a link to that up here. If I don't remember to do it before we end the stream, make sure you ask me again, and I'll put it up there. Ed, I'm not a moon pie guy. I don't like marshmallow. The only way I really like, I don't even like just plain marshmallows. Rice Krispie candy. I like my Rice Krispie treats with the melted marshmallows, but other than that, nope, no, thank you. There we go. That's what Chris. Oops, not that. Chris says that cast acrylic works better than the extruded, and that's what the 2 different types I was thinking. I knew it was cast, but I couldn't remember the other one. But yeah, if you're going to get acrylic, you want to look for cast acrylic, not extruded acrylic. After weeks of requests, I finally saw a video where someone engraved a slice of bread. Looked really good. Yeah, and another thing, somebody I seen local here, they were offering to engrave your pumpkin pie. Bring them your pumpkin pie, and they would engrave it, put an image on your pumpkin pie with their laser. And I've done a little bit of that just for the heck of doing it, but nah. I'm only interested in what can make me money. But they were charging $10 to engrave your pumpkin pie. I tried that on don't know if it was pumpkin pie, but you're burning the surface of it, and it actually, whatever I engraved, it actually tasted burnt. And I'm like, yeah, nah, don't want to ruin your food, just make it look right. All right, so now marking my spot, and we're going to go back over here to Lightburn, and we've taken our basic heart, and I used a few limbs out of my bare tree, moved it around and got it to where I want it to be, and positioned the limbs where I want those to look. But because it's a bare tree, right now, those could be possibly misconstrued as either arteries on the surface of the heart, or it could possibly be arteries or veins or flames. That doesn't look so great as is. But I'm also going to, because I went with the straight line here, I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to move it up just a little bit. And right up that line, and put a little bit more space between that one and that one. And this one I can move down just a little bit because it's on that same straight. And that's, now that they're ungrouped, I'm like, okay, got that. Yeah, Chris, seaweed. All right, we're going to change that now. I'm going to add the leaves to these, and I'm going to do it. And I don't want to have to go around here and create, a leaf here, a leaf here, a leaf here, a leaf here. A leaf. First, I got to get a leaf. I do not have a leaf over here in my art library, but I'm going to come over here to my rectangle tool and just draw out a rectangle, put it on the black path. I'm going to right click. I got a selector tool first. Right click, convert to a path, show my nodes. It will not show you the nodes until you convert it to a path. And now I'm going to insert a node here in the middle, and I'm going to see here. I forget how I did that now. I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah. Middle, and I'm going to select this one and hit the letter D for delete, D for delete, D for delete, D for delete. Now hover over this one and hit the letter S and the letter S, and now I have a leaf. I've got a single leaf. I'm going to bring this leaf up here, and he needs to be a little bit smaller. And I'm going to put him on this side. I'm going to rotate it and bring it down here. And I'm going to have it overlapping just a little bit. Not much, but just a little bit. And now, with that selected, I'm going to hold my shift key, select that limb, come up here to the arrange menu, come down to copy along path. And it's going to ask me, how many copies do I want? Space between copies, or do I want to put in the number of copies, or how much space between them? You can do one or the other. And then rotate copies. Right now, you see how they're all oriented the same way. I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that they rotate with the limb. And then that's too many for that little limb, so I'm going to decrease the number. I'll go with that for right now. We'll say 3 and say OK. Now I'm going to take this one and duplicate it, Control D, and move it over here to this one. Hold my shift button, select the next limb, arrange, copy along path. Now here I don't like the fact that I can't zoom out. Some of Lightburn's tools, when you open that tool menu, you can still scroll in and out and zoom to see the whole thing. But with copy along path, you want to make sure you see your entire image before you open that, because you can't scroll in or out once you've opened it. So I'm going to say cancel, scroll back out so I can see that whole limb, and now do arrange, copy along path, arrange, copy along path. And now I can see all of that limb, and I'm going to rotate the copies. And that's another thing. That on some of the menus, when you do use it, it will save the last settings you did as its default. This does not keep that. So you have to turn that back on every time. And I'm going to keep increasing the number of copies until I get what I feel like I want. And I'm actually going to be creating more than I want because I see the ones that I'm going to delete. So I'm going to say that looks pretty good and say okay. And I know I don't want that one, so I'll delete it. And I don't want that one, so I'll delete it. It's easier to get rid of the ones you don't want than it is to worry about creating more and reposition them. So duplicate that guy right there, and I'm going to move it up here. That's fine for there. Control D, duplicate. Just rinse and repeat. Put that there. That's going to be that entire piece. Arrange, copy along path. How many? Rotate copies. And we'll go with that and say, okay, I know I don't want that one. Delete it. I don't want that one. Delete it. Don't want that one. Delete it. And one more time. Control D, duplicate that. Bring it over here. I'm going to rotate it around. Put it right there where it's just a very slight overlap. Scroll out where I can see that whole limb. Shift, select that. Arrange, copy along path. Rotate copies. Number of copies. And I'm going to go with that. Say okay. And get rid of that one, and that one. All right. Now, if I take and select all that, put it back in fill mode, now it's starting to look more like a tree limb and trees and leaves, either in spring or fall. But, you know, it's starting to look more like some trees. I'm going to select every bit of that, and I'm going to group it. I'm not going to weld anything together. Nothing has been welded. Right now, each individual leaf can be selected. Each individual limb can be selected. I want to select all of it, though, and group it. Control D to duplicate it. Mirror it horizontally. Hold my shift button to select the heart. Align it to the right side of the heart. And now I've got symmetrical limbs and leaves on either side of the heart. I got a little bit of a traffic jam going on down here. And that's why I have not welded any of this together yet, because I can still go in and change and get rid of anything that I don't want by simply selecting this. Actually, we're going to select both of them and ungroup everything. And now I can look at the problem pieces. That leaf, I want to go bye-bye. That one, go bye-bye. Anything where they're overlapping each other, I'm getting rid of the leaves right now. I'm not worried about the limbs. I'm going to get rid of that leaf and that leaf. And I think I'm going to leave the rest of the B for right now. I'm not, and some of this design, depending on if you were going to do this and you're going to do it for a living tree. And because here, I'm not teaching you how to make this design because you don't have this artwork. But I'm trying to teach you the technique to use the artwork you do have or that you go get, how to use that copy along path, how to, the obstacles to look for, not grouping them, not welding them, and because you're going to need to change and edit things. So leaving those individual now allows you to do that as you get further into the design. And here, what I would even do, because I'm pretty happy with what this is right now. What I might do is take this and say Control D, duplicate that entire thing, and move that duplicate up here out the way. Because I'm not displeased with the way this looks. I'm liking how that's looking. Now I'm going to start changing some things and welding some things that you can always use your undo button. But what if you get 10 or 12 steps into it and you realize, okay, yeah, I don't like all that. Well, instead of just undo, you can just say delete and go grab that one that you did like and start editing again. So I'm going to select, and It's easier to weld these pieces together or to select them if you're in line mode. Line mode. There we go. I want to weld these two together. And these are overlapping right here. So I'm going to hold my shift button and select there and weld that. And over here as well. Hold my shift button, select that, and weld it. And now put it back in fill. And you can see, okay, those hearts. Those leaves right there are in the way, so they need to go bye-bye. So put that back in line mode. Because now I can just click right there and grab that leaf. If it's in fill mode, and I'm trying to grab that leaf, well, it let me grab it pretty easily that time. But a lot of times it's like, okay, well, do you want that or you want that or what part do you want? So a lot of times it's easier to grab the pieces when they're in line mode, but that worked pretty easy there. All right, so now there we go. That's looking pretty clean, and that doesn't look too shabby. Now these two leaves right here, they might be too close to each other, but in my mind's eye, I'm already envisioning that I'm going to be using this as a family tree for a family of 3, mom, dad, and maybe first baby, if whatever. So I'm going to have 3 places that I'm going to put a place for initials and or names, and that area is most likely going to be eliminated because that's where one of those pieces are going to go. So I ain't worried about that so much. So now I've got my heart, I've got my limbs. Now, how do I put my places up here to put in the places to put initials, names, what have you? Well, and this is going to come down to, well, what shape would you want to use? Do you want to take a duplicate of the outer perimeter, the heart, and reduce it down so you had 3 different hearts that you would put in there that you could put the names in each of the hearts? Or would you just want to put simple oval in there? Or the leaf shape might actually be kind of cool. But the leaf shape, because of the way its contours are, it's going to take up a lot of real estate with only a small amount of area to put your name in there because of its irregular shape. An oval will be more friendly. The oval is going to be the friendliest shape, giving you the most area to put a name in there. So I'm going to go with the oval shape. And I'm going to put this back in line mode. And somebody's blowing my phone up, and I just want to make sure it's nothing crucial with everything that's going on. Oh, wow, we've got some new patrons. Thank you very much, Scott. If you're in the live stream right now and you've signed up to become a patron, I just got that notification. Thank you, Scott. Just become a gold patron. Greatly appreciated. Okay. I've got it muted, but the phone was just buzz, 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 buzz. All right. Now, none of the leaves are welded together with the limbs. And I'm going to, there's not but a handful of limbs. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and select the limbs. And group the limbs together. So now that's all one group. Now I'm going to come in here and select everything. I stayed away from the top of the heart. So the heart is not included in that because it's not fully encompassed in that selection. But it did get the limbs. So holding the control button, I will left click with the control, and that deselects the limbs. And now I can hit group, and that groups all of my leaves together. Now hold shift and select my limbs and hit the weld button. And now that just welded all the leaves into all the limbs, and that's all one piece. It's all one design now. There's no, I can ungroup it because there's these pieces inside here that are individual pieces. But right now I need it grouped. I need all of it welded together and all of it grouped. Because now I'm going to come over here and get my ellipse tool, and I'm going to draw out an oval. And I just drew that out, dragged it out to what I felt like, okay, I want to be able to, something that's going to fill that area right there with even space right through there. I could possibly stretch that out a little bit if I wanted to make that a little bit more uniform. Hold my control button and shrink in that side. And that just doing a quick eyeball, that looks pretty even around there. Control D, duplicate it, and use my shift and arrow to move that over. And if you're not aware of your movement buttons, your arrow buttons are going to move it so far. If you hold shift and arrow, it'll move it so far. And control arrow changes it again. You set all those in your gears, in your units and grids. Here's your shape movement. Control arrow, I've got set to 1/4 millimeter. Arrow, I've got set to an inch or 25 millimeters, and 1 millimeter on shift arrow. So shift arrow, put it right about there. That looks like that's pretty close to that. But to make sure, I will take and grab that one with my shift, group those two, hold my shift button again, select the heart, tell it to go to vertical center. And there we go. That's now those are perfectly centered up. Now I can ungroup those, grab one of them and duplicate it and bring it down and put it about there. And we'll say put it in the vertical center again. Oh, I did it right. Go center. There we go. And if I wanted, in fact, looking at this design, I might come up here and do this and say Control D, duplicate it again because I've got room. Maybe do that. And take this one and blow it up a little bit. And this isn't anything like what's in, well, it's not. It is something like what's in the thumbnail, but you see I'm doing this real time. And right now I'm thinking, okay, well, I could do mom and dad in the top. And then if it's, like I said, 3 in the family, mom, dad, and the offspring in the bottom. And then that center one, the larger one, you could put the family name there. I don't know how that'd look, but that's what I'm doing right now. So I've got those ovals in there. None of them are grouped together. They are all centered up. That's centered where I want it to be. These are all centered. Now I'm going to take these and I am going to grab all of them and group those together. And I'm going to do an outward offset of, and this is going to depend on what your piece design that your end piece, your end goal, what size is it going to be? Since I'm only going to be doing this in a small piece, I might only do 1/4 millimeter. I left my decimal out. Decimals are important. If you don't believe decimals are important, ask your tax man. All right, so I did a 1/4 millimeter outward adjust or offset. I do not want to delete the originals and say okay. Now I'm going to come back in here and select my original limbs and leaves, all that's been grouped together. Hold that. That's A. Hold shift and select those outward offsets I just did and subtract it here. A subtract B. That cleans that up. Gives me a little bit of an offset, clearing between the circles. But now I've got these little arbitrary pieces up here and one over there, and that's okay. I can ungroup it and clean those up. But before I ungroup that, I'm going to come back in here. That's a set. That's the original ovals. I'm going to put it on the blue toolpath. And I'm going to turn off the blue toolpath. Now I'm only showing that. And I know I want to get rid of that little piece and that little piece. And if I select that, it's all grouped. Now I can just ungroup it and get rid of that guy and get rid of that guy. And now easily, and actually, you know what? There's a little piece that doesn't need to be there. So go ahead and get rid of that. And now, in fact, I'm going to go back. I'm going to undo. I'm going to undo. And initially, I thought it was just those two pieces. But this is a really cool tool that I didn't mention in the thumbnail. And it will help you be sure you don't miss pieces like I just about missed in that piece. And it's the select shape smaller than selected, or its name is a little bit misleading because it doesn't do what it says it does. And before I go to that, let me go back up here and look for any questions or comments that were since the last one. Yeah, I'm gonna share that, Craig. I'm gonna share that at the end of this. Whenever I go to expose myself, when I go to peel this tape off and expose this finished piece, then I will find that link and share it with everybody again. Let's see here. Question, Kevin. Can you weld something that's on two different layers, or do they need? No, you can weld them on two different layers, but when you select two different layers and weld the two different layers, they're going to be on one, obviously on one layer when you're done. And I think it's the layer you selected first is what will be the remaining layer. So layers don't matter when you're using the Boolean weld tool. Okay, now putting bookmark in here for me. Now let's look at this tool. Like I said, the tool says it does one thing, but it does another. So be aware of that, because it will not give you the result you think you're going to get, because it doesn't do what it says it does. But it does do something that's helpful, but you want to be aware of this, what I consider to be a conflict or an overlook. You'll see. So I identified early on that I wanted to get rid of that little piece and that little piece. But initially I missed this piece. And if there was a whole lot more going on in this design, there might be other pieces that you might miss as well. But here I've identified at least three that I want to get rid of. And this is the larger of the three. So if I select that single shape right there, and then I come back up here to tools. Is it tools or arrange? Arrange. Let's see. Edit. Yeah, edit. I'm sorry. In the edit menu, select shapes smaller than selected. And you know what? They may have actually changed that. I don't remember. All right. So I think it does do it. Select shapes smaller than selected. So this is my selected shape, and I tell it to select all shapes smaller than selected. That's highlighted, but it also went up here and found that shape, and if there was something else arbitrary over here that I didn't see, it would find them. It's going to find everything on the page that is smaller than that piece. And now hit the delete button, and it gets rid of all of them, including that one. Now, I think that's changed. I think they fixed that in 1.7 or somewhere, because I think initially when they first put that tool out there, it did not delete the original one that you selected. It only deleted the ones that are smaller than selected. But now it seems to be working the way I would expect it to work. So, but that's a cool tool. You don't have to go in and try and find all those things. And here, if you're doing a very, very, very small piece, this is less than 3 inches. So if that piece was scaled down, and you're talking about something that's a 0.5 millimeter, you're not going to really see 1/4 millimeter or something in a little bitty piece like that. And it can actually make your piece look muddy. It can give you an undesirable result. So by getting rid of all those little bitty pieces that are just going to muddy the outcome, find that smallest piece, select it, and edit, select shapes smaller than selected, and then delete all of those in one foul swoop. All right. And I'm loving seeing this right here. I wasn't real sure about this subject matter today because I wasn't sure if I've done beat this drum to death or, if it was going to be knowledgeable. But I am glad Terry's already learned 7 things in today's. Select smaller used to work on boundary box. Now it works on area of item. So yeah, they may have even changed that too. There were some things about it, Chris, when it first came out that I was like, okay, well, it works, but it doesn't work as expected. But that was not what I expected either. So I think there have been improvements on that tool. All right, so bookmarking and come back over to Lightburn. Turn my toolpath back on. And in fact, and this is a very basic thing. If you come over here to the toolpath and hold your shift button and left click the toolpath, it will select everything on that toolpath. And now I can hold my shift button and left click that, deselect that outer toolpath, put that back on the black, and now that's back on the same layer. And now I want to do, I've got those ovals selected. I'm going to do an inward offset and say, okay, I don't want to delete the originals. And now that's giving me an oval ring to put my names in there. So here, I might come over here and say, Mom, whatever Mom's name is. And that's going to need to be sized down to appropriate size. Hold my shift button, select that. Oop, you know what? I need to ungroup those. So grab that one, ungroup them so I can get just that one. Grab Mom and hold my shift, select just that inner one and bullseye it. And here, you're going to need to kind of sort of know, especially if you're designing for a specific family, how long are the names? If they got some of those names that don't have vowels, where it's just 13 consonants that that's going to be a determining factor on what size font you can use. And the child's name is 13 letters long with no vowels, and Mom's is May, M-A-Y. And so you got to take that in consideration. How well does, trying to balance everything out. I try to keep all of my font the same size letters, but when you will run into situations where you just can't do that because the names they chose at birth is going to prevent ever finding anything that they can find personalized, ready-made in a shop. And anytime I get those, anytime I'm doing any personalization for a customer, don't tell me their names. Email me their names. I want to see it in print. Then I want to take that and I'm going to put it in my design. And then I'm going to take a picture from my preview screen and send it to them for them to give me a double thumbs up that everything's spelled right. And then I will make the final piece. And then if they point out that that's misspelled, I can go back to my email and say, you approved it. I can make you another one, but it's going to cost you again. Typos, I'm bad enough on doing typos, but for personalization, get authorization, double check it, triple check it, and keep proof of what you've done, that they've okayed it. All right, so now I've got that, and Mom looks pretty good right there. That's a good size. So now I'm going to duplicate Mom, whatever Mom's name is, and then duplicate that name and just come right back over here and bullseye it in there. And then I can use my text tool to come to the end of Mom there and just put in Dad's name. And it will automatically duplicate the font size and the font name. Everything will be identical. And I can say, okay, grab this one, Control D, duplicate that, bring it down here to the bottom, bullseye it, text tool, backspace, don't delete it, go into text tool, go to the end and edit it by backspacing out, son. And actually, this will be a good chance to look at what I was talking about. If that's mom, dad, and son, and it was all, you know, that's going to look pretty good. But what if it was mom, dad, and it was daughter? If I tried to use the same text, that don't fit. So now that don't fit, I got to come in here and I got to shrink it down to where it does fit. And say, okay, well, that's filled up pretty good. And sometimes you can't get all the fonts, all of the names, the letters to be all the exact same size, because you will run into those cases where you've got a 4-letter name and a 12-letter name. They're not going to be the same size and not look good. But what I do try to keep consistent would be my boundary around the name and the outermost perimeter of that oval. So what I would do in a case like this is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select that innermost piece. And if I'm happy with where that's at, then I'm going to say Control D, duplicate that one. And then I'm going to hold my control button and I'm going to start dragging that down until I get to about the outer perimeter to where she's touching. She's touching here, but not there. And that's because of the particular font that's used. But if we come to about there, that's about right. And I'm going to say Control D. Or actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and put that on a toolpath. And now say Control D, duplicate that, bring it up here, center it. And look there, even without checking, that's pretty darn close. I can bring mom out to about like that, because I had a little bit of overlapping with those serifs. I think that's what those are referred to in the fonts. But that overlap. And now I can see what that font is. It's 7.85. I can come back over here to dad and tell it to be 7.85. And I can even put a copy of that one, Control D, in here. And I might not worry about it so much in there, but put it over here too. So that whenever I got to do, and I'll show you something in a minute. All right, now I've got mom, dad, and offspring. And here I might put in last name. So text. And whatever the last name might be, put it in there. And there I may not worry too much about keeping that exactly the same, because I made it bigger. And actually, I did make that oval there larger, so I could measure the distance and then do the same offset. Yeah, and that's what I would do. So this oval right here is irrelevant. But if I come down here and get that measuring tool that we've been playing with in the last 2 weeks and draw a straight line from here to here, I can see that's 1.48 millimeters. So now I can say, okay, and we'll just round that off and we'll just say do an inward offset of 1.5 millimeters. And say, okay, and put that on toolpath. And then put the last name centered up in here. And then make it to where it's within that toolpath. So it's going to be larger. A little bit of overlap. There we go. It's going to be larger than mom, dad, daughter, potentially, depending on how many letters are in the name. But it's going to have the same amount of space around the outside of the name, give or take. Again, depending on how many letters are in the name. Put that back on the black toolpath. There we go. And now if I'm pretty happy with that design, then I'm either going to save it in a project file, or you could possibly even just save this in your art library. Save it just like it is. And then whenever you want to pull that up, if you're going to be using this and putting them on the hearts, then all you got to do now is go into your art library, click, bring that in, go in and edit the names, send it to the laser. Bob's your uncle, done. And yes, Bob, I know you're not really my uncle, but you know. So using your art library can save you a ton of time, being able to bring in different pieces and integrate them into your design work. And your art library typically should not be finished projects. I don't want to put finished pieces and designs in there, but since this is not a finished piece, but really just a template to create unique pieces and put individual names in there, I might put that in my art library. So a lot of stuff today. Any questions on what we've gone over in this piece? Any questions, comments, recommendations, suggestions? Any comments regarding what we've done in the design part of this before I expose myself? And I'll get the link for the tape. And I'm going to start peeling this off. If anybody's got any comments or questions, they won't acknowledged. And this is, like I said, this was just a crystal heart that I put just the tape on, nothing else. And somebody even put in the Facebook group or in the Rolly Automation group, wipe it down with alcohol and all. I wipe it on my shirt, put a piece of tape on it, put it in the laser. I didn't do any prep work. Nothing. No cleaning, no prep. Just stuck the tape on it. Now, because this piece is a really intricate piece with all the engraving from the mandala, it will require some cleaner to get the adhesive off. But right now, I'm just slowly trying to peel all this off. And because it's got so many cuts, it's going to peel away and leave a lot of, it's going to require some weeding. Weeding, W-E-E-D-I-N-G. Weeding is what this is referred to in the sign industry or vinyl industry. You got to weed your material. Do you have a link for the heart? For the crystal heart? Yep. Dairy, it is, I'm buying these in large quantities from the wholesaler. If you looked online and tried to find these on Amazon, you can buy the customized ones with personalization for anywhere from 60 to 80 bucks. You can buy the blanks for around 15 bucks. But that's too much. So I contacted the manufacturer and I'm buying them in bulk quantities, and I'm getting them to where I can sell them to you for 10 bucks a piece. And they are on the Hobo with Wood website. In fact, while I'm peeling this off and weeding it out, let's switch again and switch to here. Go to home. There's the home products of hobowithwood.com. Right there, I've got a new product in here, the Crystal Heart Paperweight. And I'm selling them for 10 bucks a piece. They come, as you see, they come plain in a satin lined gift box. And I've got some images showing, the engraving, how well it works. And all of these were done with just using nothing but the 10-watt diode on the Rolly. It doesn't matter, the XW. These are duplicates. I need to get rid of some of those. There we go. Got it out of the box and hold it up so you can see. There's in the box. But it comes with the gift box. and it's it makes for a really nice presentation for a finished piece, especially if you're gifting it to someone. But that is on the website, hobowithwood.com. And let's see, I did not share in here my settings. I've got the dimensions of it, but I will go back in and edit that. Typically, I will not share my settings as a recommendation because of the variances in lasers and also with the different variables that you can have with the material. When you're working with a living product, a piece of wood, something that was alive, especially if you're dealing with plywoods, the different qualities, the fillers, the glue, all those things, they can have adverse effects on the outcome. So I don't ever like to say, these are my settings. These are my settings. But here, because we're working with a piece of glass, this is crystal. It's not just glass. It is crystal. And crystal is glass with additives in it. So it's more durable than just crystal, or just more durable than just glass. So I will go back in and edit the description of this to share the settings that I used with my 10-watt diode laser to get this outcome, so that you shouldn't have to waste material testing to find the right outcome, to get the right result. But if you're not using the Rolly Lasermatic 10-watt, I still might caution you that your 10-watt, and even with the Rolly, depending on how clean your laser is, your outcome may vary. But I'll share the settings that I used, and it may save you some testing time. And boy, it's taking some time to weed all this out. I think it's going to be really pretty whenever it's done. Looking for my cleaner. I cleaned the honeycomb and cleaned the laser this week, and I don't know where I left it. I think I left it in the bathroom. A lot of weeding, a lot of weeding, a lot of weeding. Unrelated, but I'm wondering what kind of air assist you have. Just a little. Yeah, it is. I think they all use a very similar pump. The problems I was having with the first laser that I owned, and I felt like was a inferior air assist, was not because of the volume of air from the pump. Oops, wrong button. So much as it was the design of the air assist, the way that it all hooked up. And it was causing a vortex beneath the laser, beneath the output of the laser, that would actually suck the smoke and the debris back up into the laser head from the bottom, not from the top. It's and that's another thing, another reason for having really good extraction or a fan blowing across your material so that it's blowing the material away from your laser head. Because we've got the cooling fans on top of the laser module. Well, if smoke is staying there, well, you're grabbing that smoke and sending it right down into the laser module, corroding the cooling fans, and about got all this off. About, not quite. Man, it's a lot. And I'm not clean. I'm using just my finger and friction to rub all this off. I'm not using any solutions here. But boy, that's purty. That's purty. I want to get it out. It's just dumb luck that I found this process using this tape. And it all came using a little spit to get this off here. It all came from being lazy. I did not want to have to, especially if someone says, hey, I want one of those and I need it. Can you have it for me tomorrow? Well, some of the paint time, you got 3 or 4 coats of paint. You need to drive, 3 or 4 hours between applications, or an hour between applications. You need to do 2 applications, 3 applications. And I consider all that to be cost of goods. The prep time that you have to spend getting a piece ready to engrave, that should be considered part of your cost of that product. If you spend, even if you're doing a half hour between coats and allowing it to dry, and you're doing 2 coats or 3 coats, your application time, the drying time, you might not count, but the application time between each of the coats, you spend 10 minutes between applications, you end up spending 30, 40 minutes just preparing a piece to get it ready. Well, if you're figuring your time is at least $25 an hour, then you're $15 of an extra cost of materials and just getting the piece ready. And here with the glue, you can do it in a minute. Or not the glue, the tape. And I really need to go wash this, but that turned out really, really nice. And I haven't washed that yet or cleaned it up. There's still some black residue that'll wipe away with a little bit of soap and water. That's what I need to do now, is just some soap and water and clean that up. But I like that. And no prep time. Easy peasy. Easy peasy. I'm going to go get the link for that. But before I do, for the tape, are you engraving in the box? No. In fact, if anyone buys any of these hearts from me, not only will I share with you the settings that I use with the 10-watt laser, I will share with you the jig that I have created. And what I have, about dumped it in the floor again. I don't want to show you this in a minute. We're at hour 37. I want to be done before 2 hours. I've got a simple jig that I've got here that the heart will sit in, but you can see it's multiple layers. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of 3mm plywood that's glued up. And the bottom 3 layers have a step that the top layer doesn't. And the reason for that is the heart will sit in there, and the bottom of it here becomes flush with the honeycomb, and the top of that heart then sits on those other 3, and that makes the engraved surface perfectly level. Because if you put this in the laser, this is a taper, and that's not going to engrave right. So you've got to, it's a wedge. So you got to get that up so it engraves on a flat surface. Don't have to, but if you want to look right, you do. So I'll share the jig that I've got for this with anybody that buys the hearts. And then what I do is go back here, go back to here. Nope, not there. There. So that's what this red line is. This red line right here is actually the jig. That's the jig that I have in the corner, and I put it down here in the home position for my laser. Then I put my heart in there. And even though I have this aligned so that it should be right spot on per specific, once I've got that all in there and I've got my tape on the surface, and if you're going to engrave this glass and you're going to do a name or an image that has to be read, and you want that to be on I recommend engraving the bottom or the back surface. You got to do the inverse. You got to do the reverse image of it, so that when you look at it from the front, you're able to read it right to left. But once I've got the image correct and positioned within that toolpath, I then go back and I use my framing tool to frame just the image that I'm going to engrave. And with the fire on when framing option turned on in Lightburn, I will watch my laser as it moves in a very slow speed for framing to make sure that it is framing in the center of the glass or the crystal where it's positioned. Because you could have a slight variance depending on how well you cut out the design, how well you glued it up, because here's 4 pieces of material that's glued together. And I always try to, in fact, I'll go back to Lightburn. This is the outer perimeter of the jig that I have. This is the perimeter that the glass, the heart sets in. And then I've got another toolpath in here that is my boundary, that I do not want my image to be really any larger than that. That keeps a good even distance around the entire piece. So what I'll do, if this is supposed to be the outer perimeter of the glass, I've got the heart positioned in the jig. Then I'll come over to my move tab, make sure I've got my fire on. And if you don't have this, guys, where is it at? Is it in here? Fire on display. They changed this, and I'm still getting used to it. Maybe it's in the setting, the wrenches. They changed the menus. Yeah, here. You go to your wrench and screwdriver and laser on when firing. Turn that on, and then you'll need, and every manufacturer is going to be a little different. So they have a minimum amount of power that has to be sent to the laser before the laser will actually fire. But you don't want to have the power so high that it actually marks your material. With mine, I've got it at 1.75%. So the wrench and screwdriver, laser on when firing, enable the fire button is another one that I have turned on, and say okay. And then I will select this outer piece and tell it to frame just that outer piece right there. And when I hit that frame button, the laser will fire, and I can watch the laser as it moves around the perimeter of that crystal heart. And I can ensure myself that it is staying on that outer perimeter. And if I have to, I can use my shift arrow functions and or control arrow functions to move it ever so slightly to make sure that wherever I've got that new piece positioned on that jig is going to be within tolerances of what I want it to be. So I will, anybody that's buying those, I'll share. And this is not a perfect fit. If I were to look real close, you can see the gap up there in that top corner right there where there's some gap between the crystal and the jig, but there's no gap there at that point, and there's no gap there at that point. And it's snug. It won't move. It will not move at all within that jig. So it works. But being able to have, that's why I said people get all upset because their camera ain't working right or the camera's not calibrated. I've been doing this now for 2.5 years. I do not use the camera unless I am grabbing a piece of scrap material that might have an odd shape, and I've tried to even quit having that. When I've got my material that's going to have pieces left over, I try to go ahead and cut those out instead of having oddball skeletons laying around. But I might have a piece like this that I lay on the bed, use the camera to take a picture so I can help position where that piece needs to be in the work bed. But then I use that laser, the fire on when framing, to make sure that it's positioned right. I don't use the camera hardly ever. Let's see here. So I'll share the settings and the jig that I have for this for anybody that buys any of the hearts. Let's see here. Questions, comments, questions. I'm the one and I got to get a drink. I'm losing my voice. Yep, I got you, Scott. Let's see. Well, I showed this last week, Scott. I don't know if you were in the stream last week or not, but I am working on those. And these actually made me. Scott sent me my. Oh, that's not it. Where is that? I had it right here. I had it right here because I was using it. I was using it to make my snap rings. What I do with it? Oh, now I'm getting angry. If it was a snake, it'd bite me. I'm sure it's right here. But he sent me the little green 3D printed mallet. And he sent me a few of these tumblers. But I've been playing with these, Scott, trying to find the right settings and whether or not I want to use laser marking spray or 10 watt or 30 watt. And anybody that's a regular viewer of Clack Shack, he'll tell you when you buy a product, you need to buy one or two just for testing to get it dialed in. And then if you pay attention, when he talks about his mirrors or he talks about his tumblers or whatever, once he's got one and he likes the result of it, he ain't interested in changing up. Why? Because he's got hours spent in figuring out what works best for that product to get the result he wants from his laser. You got something that works, stick with it, especially once you've spent all this time testing and figuring it out. And I'm not sure the name brand of this one, but I even called but during the testing of this product. This is not a Yeti, but I called Yeti because you want to be careful, and I don't want to go too. We got another 15 minutes or so. You get some deformation with these if your power is too high. And on this grid right here, I don't feel any deformation. This one is got some good solid black markings on it and no deformation going on. There's no indentations. But this one, that one right there, it's got some good marking to it. It's not as crisp as that, in my opinion, but the power was so high, and I don't know, you can see it there. There's actually an indentation around that whole test grid of that thing. If I had a straight edge that I could lay on there, see that gap, how much of that deformed down there in between those, right in that area right there. Yeti coolers will void the warranty on their product if it's laser engraved. If someone brought you a case of Yetis and said, "Hey, I want to do this," or you're doing Yetis, and now it's not cooling, they're not keeping your drink cool anymore. There's problem. You're actually going to send it back to Yeti for any kind of warranty. As soon as they feel that indentation, they're going to say, "Sorry, voided the warranty." So I look for the optimum results without any deformation. And I got the deformation with this using the Rolly and using the stainless steel settings where you're changing the value that was S22 value or whatever it was. I was using the stainless steel settings, and it was just getting this particular tumbler too hot and it was deforming it. I got my best results using the Brilliance laser marking spray, which is really weird because it's not supposed to work with diodes, but I have proved it works with diodes, and it works well with diodes, and it puts a permanent mark on there. And the Brilliance laser marking spray is a third of the cost of the Ceramark. And I've tried to encourage Clack to try the Brilliance, but he uses Ceramark because, like I said a minute ago, he's used it, he's tested it, he knows it works, and he doesn't have any problems with it. And he doesn't want to spend a whole lot more time testing new products out because he's got something that works and worked great for him. But the Brilliance works for me at a fraction of the cost, and I get a really good uniform coating. And those are supposed to be variances, but they're all practically the same. And there's no deformation. But I've been playing with it, Scott. I just haven't found the right settings because and these two snowmen, this one up here is done with the stainless steel settings of the Rolly, and this one was done with the laser marking spray. But there, the laser marking spray gave me some unwanted results, uneven results. That is more uniform, so it did a better job of the actual engraving and marking, but there's deformation there. There's indentations in and around the stainless. So it's the quality of the stainless, the thickness of the stainless, the ability of it marking, a lot of things to take into consideration. These aren't just put them on and go. You got to put some time in figuring out what works best. But I am working on them, Scott. Just hadn't figured out the best way to approach those to give me the result that I would be happy with. Supposedly sticky tape like Gorilla Tape help. Yes, tape does help with weeding. But it doesn't help a whole lot with a piece like I just did, because some of the pieces were actually almost burnt completely away and there's nothing left there but glue residue. And using tape to weed does great for removing the paper, the remaining crepe paper, but it doesn't do that great of a job of the residue. You need a cleaning agent, alcohol, to remove the glue residue. Question mark. Where do you engrave? No, did you engrave top or did you? Okay, I think I do the reverse. I do the bottom. I do the bottom on the paperweights. And here is the top surface. There, this is the engraved surface. And it doesn't look bad. And it's really dark right now because I got a lot of black and glue residue. But this side, it looks better. It's, you've got that depth, and it's, it looks better from the reverse engraving instead of the top engraved, because now you've lost that third dimension, or that, it looks better from that side, in my opinion. Definitely going to be ordering those hearts from your store. Yes, I've got them on the website now. There's I've sold a bunch of them, but I've got I think nearly a dozen of them still left over there. But as soon as these get gone, I've got depending on the demand and but I'm buying these things like 60 and 100 at a time, and I've only got a dozen of them left. These have sold really, really well. I may be bumping it up and buying them by the gross. We'll play that by ear and see. And if you want to buy them by the gross, I'll turn you on to the vendor. But I don't know if any of y'all want to buy 144 of them at a time. Let's see here. Questions and comments. Comment. I ruined 2 of them before I reached out for your help. Yeah. I'm guessing, Scott, you're referring to the stainless steel. Yeah, you should always, this is the first one I got out. I intended to do nothing but test on this and hope that I could learn everything I needed to from this one. But I made sure that my test grids were small enough that I could get 3 at least in a column, because I knew this was going to be toast. The heat probably melts the insulation on the Yeti. I don't know if there's actually any insulation in those, Armistead. I think they're just vacuum sealed. I think it's all vacuum. I think it's just space. Could be wrong, but I was thinking, because that's really how insulation works, is it's, the space, the air gap is what makes insulation work so well for you a lot of times. So, but I'm not sure, Armstead. But I know that Yeti will void them if there's any deformation in their cups. Yep, vinegar works great. Vinegar and alcohol. And this was brought up in the Rolly Automation Facebook group today or yesterday. Cleaning the laser, cleaning the work bed, cleaning the honeycomb, I use LA Awesome. I use LA Awesome for every component in the laser. And I use LA Awesome to clean the glue residue off that. I use LA Awesome because it does an awesome job. But beyond that, what I said a few minutes ago, I go to the Dollar Tree at least once a month, and you can buy a gallon of that in their, I think in their 5 or more. They got it in a quart for $1.25, but you can buy a gallon for $5, something. So, I'll buy, 4 or 5 gallons of it, and it's cheap, and it does a fantastic job. So if you have a Dollar Tree near you or dollartree.com, LA Awesome is an excellent cleaning material for your laser and for your products. Craig, I've got some videos that I encourage you to go back in Hobo with Wood group or the YouTube, and I've got some videos showing how I set up. Some of them are a little bit dated because it talks about how I do determine the size of the pattern. But if you're doing like this particular tumbler has no taper on it whatsoever. It's just a cylinder. That's easy. But some of your glasses and some of your engravings are going to have a taper on them. And when you do a taper, that not only do you need to worry about the size, height, and width, but you also have, in order for it to look round on a tapered glass, you have to engrave an oval. You have to engrave an egg shape. A round shape will not look round on a tapered glass. And I've got some really good videos on all of that, showing how to do all that. But since I did that video, Lightburn has come out with the taper warp tool to help. It does everything that I explained. And I did the video before they came out with the tool. But it helps you understand the whys you do what you do when you do what you do. So go into the YouTube channel and look for the cylinder and in rotary setups and in taper setups, and it's all in there. Now, I said I'd get that link for the tape, and I want to get that now. Amazon. Orders. 3M. No, I don't want that. I won't. Where's my order history? Orders. Go to Papa. Your orders. Oh, I searched in the wrong place. 3M tape. You got to follow the instructions. All right. So I bought this. Today's date is November the 30th, 2024, the year of our Lord. You see how much tape I've got on here? And I've been using this since, I'll show you, since August the 13th, 2022. So I've had this one roll for over 2 years. Because I only buy it this big so that when I want to do the bigger projects, I can do it without having to put seams or overlapping it. Because if you don't seam it up just right, then it's going to be a problem. And if you actually overlap it, then that can get same thing with the paint. You can have, a thicker area that's going to cause an uneven result from the laser. So I like having this big piece that I can just cover my entire area. So let me get the link for this. Get a link. Come to Papa, copy, and paste in the comments. Paste, paste, paste. All right, so in the comments over there, you should see the Amazon link for this exact same roll. Now, currently, this exact same roll is selling for $51.30. It ain't cheap, but it's crepe paper. It's natural rubber adhesive. It's not going to create any. I've been sitting here. I did that whole piece was doing when we started the stream, was doing through over half the stream. I do not have my ventilation window open. It was just venting into the room. No horrible smells, no smoking. It's, it's the bomb when it comes to the result that it generates, and it doesn't have any horrible smell. Taper, just angle the rollers on the tumbler. I don't have rollers. I got jaws, and you can. There may be more to this than you're aware of, because you can change the angle of your rollers, and you can get it to where it's a flat surface to engrave on. But I had a demonstration piece here, but I don't have all of them here now. Let's see here. But this right here is this is one I can show you. If I can hold this up just right. I cut that construction paper out. That's what do they call that? Cardstock. It's 30-pound cardstock. And I cut that out using the laser and using the rollie, and that's a perfect sphere. That is a perfect circle cut out of 30-pound cardstock. But when I take that and I wrap that around this tapered glass, that sphere now become an oval. It's no longer a circle. So the spherical shape of the glass will change your outcome. Even if you've got it level, even if you've lifted it and your rollers or your jaws, everything's level, your surface is level, the taper is going to change the outcome from a circle to an oval. And that's why I say it can't be a round image that you engrave. It's got to be ovaloid. The video I did one or two of them that you need to go back and, in fact, just for the heck of it, just so you ain't wasting time, and I want you to looking at the right one, I'm going to find it, and I'll put the link to that in the description. Videos. And like I said, it is a little bit dated because Lightburn added the taper warp tool after I did this video. But this video is one that I recommend that you watch regardless. In fact, this image, I'll pull up this image. In fact, all right, we're at 2:03. We're going to wrap this up. But I want to show you this. I'm going to copy that. Copy. Paste. Paste. All right, so I put a link in the comments for the cylinder correction video that I've got in here about dealing with the taper and all that stuff. But that was cylinder, go to go here. Here. Come on, computer. Why are you going so slow? There we go. Thumbnails. You know what? That might even be on. I was going to bring up a big picture, but that might be on the other thumb drive that was corrupted. So we'll just show you on YouTube. or try to anyway. Switch. So cylinder correction for rotary engraving, and the thumbnail that's pictured right there. Can I go? Yeah, I can blow that up a little bit. Well, I thought I could, and it went nuts on me. Can I blow that one up? All right. You're in the way. But if you look at those circles on those glasses, you can see very plainly they look very, very different from one another, but they're not. Those are all three perfect circles that I taped on the exact same glasses, and with variances in all of them, depending on how you use the warp feature for your taper. Da, 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 da. And he's got arm stats to calculate the circumference and center that using that figure as the max width. I look at depending on which circumference, this circumference or this circumference. So what I do is I take and all this is explained in that video, so I'm not going to go into much. I will measure the circumference of where the image is going to go, and then whatever that circumference is, I think I calculated. You don't want to pick up the glass and have to rotate the glass round to round to read whatever you engraved on it. So when you look at it, how much of that circumference can you see? And I think it was around 30% of the circumference is what you can see without having to rotate the glass. But all that's in that video. So go watch that video. Questions? I do not dilute my LA Awesome. Not well. Let me take that back. Let me take that back. I do not dilute the LA Awesome when I'm cleaning the honeycomb. I do dilute the LA Awesome when I'm using it for the Lexan or the protection cover, the bed of the material for when I'm going to be using it here to get rid of the glue residue. I follow the instructions of LA Awesome when I'm using it as a regular cleaning agent. But for the honeycomb, straight. Questions and comments. Armstats. I was just thinking of the laser focus due to the taper. Yeah, making sure that it's level. So that the focus stays the same, but the taper drastically changes the shape of your design. Andy says your taper video still has lots of excellent info, and I do believe it does too, because without knowing it, I put that video out about 3 weeks or 2 weeks prior to Lightburn releasing the version that has the taper warp tool in it. And the taper warp tool does all of the calculations that I'm telling you need to do for you. But now you understand why it's doing what it's doing, how it's doing what it's doing, when it does what it does. Yeah, I'm not even sure what. So Jack's saying the same crepe paper in Scotland is 80. Was it 80 pounds plus 10.50 for deliveries, 90 some odd dollars, almost 100 pounds, give or take. But I'm telling you, if and I don't know, is that extremely expensive? And if so, I can guarantee the results of it. And if you can find, the only reason I know what this is I called 3M. I called 3M's product support and their customer support and their R&D. I talked to a whole bunch of people. When I research. I want to know why something did what it did when it did. And so, because I got, not all of the 3M tape did as well. This one performed phenomenally and gave me excellent results. And I wanted to know why it did as good as it did. And so when I told them the different tapes that I was using, because I approached 3M and strongly recommended that they could take this same roll of tape and begin marketing this tape as laser marking tape for diode users and create a whole new demand for this tape. And they would probably see a huge spike in sales because of how easy and simple it is to do it with this. And they could charge a premium for it because I've not got as good of a result with the same, with this, with as easy as this is. Everything else is a whole lot harder to even get close to the same result. But when I made those phone calls and talking to the R&D and their chemical people, they explained to me that this is strict. This is nothing. This is mainly used in body shops. It's automotive tape. It's not really craft tape or painter's tape. It's mainly used in the automotive industry and body shops. And it's made out of crepe paper, and the adhesive is natural rubber adhesive. So and nothing else worked as good. So there you go. If you can find, Jack, if you can find something that's crepe paper and all natural rubber adhesive that's not 3M 201 plus, you might give it a try. But you're going to roll the dice and have to do your own testing. But this stuff, I guarantee you, works. All right. I bought it. And what is this? This may only be 11 inches because the biggest thing I was doing at the time were the 12-inch mirrors, and I don't go out to the edge. So whatever I shared with you is what I bought. If I shared the 11-inch roll, that's what I have here is my 11-inch roll, because I'm not going to be doing a full. At the time when I bought this, I didn't have a laser like this. I didn't have this big work area. I only had a small work area, and the biggest thing I was doing was 12-inch mirrors, and I wanted at least a one-inch buffer around it, or offset around it. So 11 inches wide was perfect, and I still think it's perfect for because I don't know of any material that I'm going to be taping up that I'm going to be doing any larger than a 12 by 12 mirror. That's what's really, really popular. The 12 by 12 mirrors in a shadow box, or engraving a piece of 12 by 12 in a shadow box and put some filigree around it to dress up. You go to Hobby Lobby when they're on sale, and you can buy the shadow boxes in a 3-pack, and where you get them for like $2 a piece, and you can pop that. Now, when you're engraving glass, and I'm going to say this, and we're going to wrap it up. The settings that I will share with anybody that wants to buy any of those crystals, the lead, the crystal hearts, I know it works. It's thick and it's crystal. It's not glass. When you're doing picture frames, sometimes you get really, really, really thin glass with some of those picture frames. And the amount of heat required to engrave and etch, you're actually putting little microfractures in the glass. Well, those microfractures on really thin glass can sometimes cause it to go pink, and then it just shatters right across the. So picture frame glass is not always the best material to try and engrave. It can sometimes just crack on you, and not, or you get it halfway engraved and then it cracks. So beware of trying to do that. But the thicker mirrors that I get all the mirrors have different types of mirror processing to create the mirrors. They're not all created the same. The cheap mirrors that you get from the dollar store are paper and mylar, and they engrave very unevenly, and sometimes they have support ridges through the paper And so on some of those I got zebra stripe results to where it engraved fine, but where those reinforcement places were at, I had zebra stripes everywhere. Then you can get some that are that don't have that and get you a different result. But the really good mirrors are the ones that are done with a silver plating. You want a silver, nickel, and copper plating to create the mirrors to give you your best results and I get those at Lowe's in the 12 by 12 tiles. All right. So Amazon's out of stock right now. Yeah. Well, that might be because of all the recommendations I've been doing. And if you're not going to be doing the 12-inch tiles and you're only going to be doing these smaller pieces, then anything in that link, if I go back to that link and I come back over here, the important thing is the 3M 201 plus. The 201 plus, not the 201. It's not the same. But the 3M 201 plus should give you the same results. And here that's showing 11 inches wide, but then and then they got different lengths. There's what is that? 1 1/4 wouldn't really fit for nothing. That neither, but 3/4 not so good. Width, there we go. Width. Nope. 48, nope. 11 inches, 12 inches. So yeah, if they've got the 12, go with the 12. But I would stay away from the narrow ones. If you're going to be doing, let's say 48 millimeters, that's almost 2 inches. 96 mil. There you go. That might be an option. At 96 mil, 96 divided by 25.4, that's 3.7 inches wide. So that's almost 4 inches wide. So if you use that link, and if you're going to be doing, in fact, what did I just do with it? There it is. These at 96, right at 4 inches, these are only 73, 74 mil wide. So, and if you're doing glasses, drinking glasses, you're not going to be doing anything much wider than 4 inches. So if you're not going to be doing the great big pieces, then that 96 mil, where is it single priced? That's 2 units for 175. 5 units. Where's the individual number of pieces? 1. There we go. 90. Oh, well, you can't. Anyway, look for the 201 plus. The 201 plus, and you might find it in a width that you can use. But I recommend not overlapping it or trying to seam it. Okay. All right, we're 18 minutes past my goal today, and I'm doing good if I can keep it under 2 hours, but we're at 2:18. I hope you guys found this informative. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. Like I said, you got to see the family you wanted to, stayed away from the family you didn't want to. Nobody, no fists were thrown. Might have been some name calling. This is pretty, but I'm still weeding stuff out of here. I got to go soak this and clean it up. But thank you guys for hanging out with me today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. Thank you to the new patrons that subscribed today. I heard the phone going off some more. I didn't bother going in and checking it, so I don't know if more people signed up. But I do. I sincerely thank each and every one of you for your support. The patrons are what make this happen. And if you guys have any problems or any questions with any of my designs or any of your designs, do not hesitate to reach out and hit me up. Just know that I hit the wrong button. Banners, turn that off. Where is it? There it is. If you have a problem with a file that you want me to assist you with, listing your problems helps. I need to know what problems you're having. But as much or more than I need to see that, I also need to see the file. So I can see why you're getting the outcome you're getting. So if you have any problems, send me the file, send me your description of what you're going to that hobowithwood@gmail.com. I'm happy to help. I don't charge. And if necessary, I will meet up in a YouTube studio or a online studio like this so I can show you and share screens with you and educate you. And I would rather spend a little bit of time and help educate you and teach you what your problem was this time, so you don't have the problem again in the future, and you don't have to hit me up 5 times, need me to help you fix the same problem, because I can show you once how to fix it, and I don't have to worry about you no more. So thank you for your support. Here if you need me. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you. Hopefully I'll have a video up next week. Don't know what. If not, we'll see you in the next live stream. Making sure there's no last questions or comments. Nope. All right. Looks good. Bye, y'all. Have a great week.